Blackhawks earned their second win of the preseason with a really nice game in Minnesota. This game was the third of the preseason. All three have been on the road, and so the Blackhawks traveling same day. That's been their plan throughout this preseason. But today it felt like it didn't affect their legs as much as the previous two games. We saw last Tuesday in Detroit where they came out strong and then they kind of ran out of gas. And then we look to last night in St. Louis where they started off the game terribly and then they started to come on as the game went along. But tonight it felt like everyone was moving good from the jump. The start of this game was really strong for the Blackhawks, and it felt like they stayed playing pretty well throughout the whole game. Now the third period may have not been the best. Minnesota definitely was able to generate a few chances, but weren't able to ultimately get back into the game, and the Blackhawks escaped with a 4-1 victory. I guess just to start with the biggest storyline of the game, which was Frank Nazar. He had a hat trick in this game, and he was flying around. He was arguably the best player on the ice. I mean, normally you would say he definitely was, but I felt like Connor Bedard was playing unreal, and the Blackhawks really had a lot of guys that were playing really well tonight, including the guy in Nate. Drew Commesso was really sharp as well. But I guess just to start with Nazar, he started off really strong with that first period power play goal and a great feed from Teravainen to get the Blackhawks on the board. We're not going to talk about his celebration after that. He then scored again in the second period and then capped off his hat trick with an empty netter to seal the game in the third. He scored 3 of the Blackhawks' 4 goals tonight. He was definitely noticeable, flying around everywhere. His speed was on display. Had 3 goals, 4 shots, a hit, a block, and he had a really good game playing on that second line with Teuvo Teravainen and Tyler Bertuzzi. I thought that line in general looked pretty good today. Bertuzzi had a couple nice flashes, and I felt like Teuvo was what you expect Teuvo to be, which was a really good playmaker. He set up Nazar on that first goal, which was on the power play, and he made a few other noticeable plays to set up Frank Nazar. He had a bank shot kind of area pass off the boards to spring Nazar on a breakaway, which he didn't score on, but that was a really good chance. And we just really saw Teuvo's playmaking on display. I thought that line was really good tonight, and Nazar was able to start off very strong to his preseason and season with a 3-goal effort. And then the first line with the Bedard line was really good as well. I thought Connor Bedard played outstanding today. He had some highlight reel plays, including the spinorama backhand pass he made to Ryan Donato to set him up for a goal in the third period. That was a highlight reel play, and he also just had a few other high quality chances in this game. I felt like he was moving as much faster than we saw on Tuesday in Detroit. It feels like his speed was a lot more on display. I think they said something on the broadcast. I'm not sure if we have NHL Edge stats for the preseason, but they said on the broadcast, I think, that Bedard was moving at something like 22 miles an hour, which did eclipse his mark from all of last year. His top speed from all of last year was lower than 22 miles an hour. So if that was accurate, Bedard's obviously and statistically is faster to start this season. And I thought he used his speed really well today. He was good in on the forecheck again. And then we saw one chance specifically, which he didn't score on, but he used his speed to create a breakaway. He sped by 2 Minnesota defenders to create, I guess, a semi-breakaway for himself. Wasn't able to get a good move off, but still used his speed to create a chance. That was not something we saw last year. That was not a play we saw him make last year, pretty much simply because he wasn't able to. He didn't have the wheels to move around defenders. And we saw that from both him and Frank Nazar today. Both used their speed very effectively. I guess I shouldn't say the whole line was great. I mean, Donato had that really good shot off the Bedard pass, and he created a few chances. I didn't see Andre Burakovsky or notice him too much. I didn't feel like he had a super impactful game in this one, but I'm also not going to read too much into it. This is, again, a brand new line, and Burakovsky's new to the team, so I'm not expecting them to light it up right away. So not going to read too much into Burakovsky's game today or that line, I guess, as a whole, outside of the fact that Connor Bedard looks really good here early in this season. I do want to talk about the bottom 6 a little bit. I thought the kid line with, I mean, I guess there were a lot of kids on the ice, so I shouldn't say that, but the youngest line overall with Oliver Moore, Ryan Green, and Nick Lardis was decent. I didn't feel like Nick Lardis really did much today, but I think Oliver Moore created a few more chances in this game. He's looked really good and been really impressive in this preseason. He's really making a strong case for a roster spot. Still don't know if it's going to happen, but he's making them make a pretty tough decision. And then Ryan Green didn't have a ton of offensive chances or was super noticeable in this game, but did win 50% of his draws, which we saw last night. He had, I think, a 59% clip, so he's proving to be a very good centerman here in preseason, which adds up to what we saw in his 2-game NHL regular season sample size at the end of last year. He looks like someone that can stick at center long term. And then I think the fourth line did the fourth line's job. Nick Foligno had 5 hits. Sammy Savoie had 4 hits. AJ Spellici wasn't too noticeable today, but he's just getting back into action after missing almost 2 weeks, or at least the start of training camp with an injury. So I felt like the forward group overall was really good. Everyone seemed to be moving pretty well, and for the most part, maybe outside of some portions of the third period, I think the Blackhawks controlled this game. Now the Wild were playing more of an AHL group as opposed to the Blackhawks, which had a lot of their NHLers. The whole top 6 offensively and their top 4 defensively were players that will be on the NHL roster and are going to be the top 6 and top 4 when the NHL regular season kicks off. So it was expected that the Blackhawks probably performed better, but it's just nice to see that they actually did, and there wasn't a letdown or anything, or there weren't any questions that stemmed up. They came in and took care of business, which is a really nice sign. I did feel like they had a really strong game overall, and I think the game overall was much better than we've seen in the previous 2 games. Defensively, it was a little bit of an interesting game. Now, the first and probably most important thing note from this game was that Alex Vlasic left early in the third period with an injury. It looked like he may have gotten sliced with the skate. Not sure. I'm sure we'll get an update though shortly on Vlasic's status. Obviously, really hoping he's okay because he is a huge part to the Blackhawks defense. But outside of him, I wrote in my notes, I felt like Korchinski really started the game strong. We were seeing him use his skating more in this game than what we've seen in the previous games he's played. I felt like there were multiple times I saw in the first period that I wrote down that he used his skating to break out of the zone, to create play in the neutral zone, and that wasn't as much on display in previous games, and I feel like that's what I've been asking Korchinski to do, and I think that's what we all want Korchinski to do, is use his speed, use his skating more, because that's how he's going to be good. That's how he's going to be impactful offensively. Overall, it was another solid game for Korchinski. His D partner, Nolan Allen, I thought played a really good game in this one. He's been very strong defensively in these few games that we've seen this preseason, and he was very physical today as well. Laid a couple big hits. I feel like he should have the leg up for the 6th defenseman spot for the NHL opening night roster. I feel like he's played better than Ethan Del Mastro has this preseason, and I feel he should have the leg up for that 6th defenseman spot. Sam Renzel was super good. He had an assist, 4 shots, 3 blocks, and 2 hits in 21 minutes of ice time. He continues to fill up the stat sheet for the Blackhawks, and he's definitely, I feel like, solidified himself in that top pair defenseman spot. And then the other guys I want to talk about, Wyatt Kaiser played heavy minutes tonight. He was very good. However, his partner, Artem Leshinov, I didn't feel like he was too great tonight. He seems to still be a little rusty just overall in camp and preseason. He hasn't quite shown a ton in this preseason. He still does seem like he's going to start the year in the NHL, and I think that makes a lot of sense. However, I definitely was hoping to see a little bit more by this point from Leshinov, but it's still early. He's still a young player, and there's not too much room to be concerned. He's a 20-year-old defenseman, so I really don't have a ton of concerns there, but probably wish we would have seen a little bit more in this preseason. But again, probably not a good idea to read too much into it. I'm sure he'll figure out his game. It might just be taking a little bit longer for him. And then lastly, Drew Commesso in goal was really good. He stopped 28 of 29 shots. So all 3 of the Blackhawks' top goaltenders have played really good in their preseason starts. Soderblom was so good in the opening preseason game. He stopped, I think, 40 or 41 shots. Spencer Knight was really good last night, and then Commesso really good tonight. The Blackhawks have a really solid rotation of goaltenders and good goaltender depth as well. Going through a few of the takeaways, replies you guys left on Twitter at Blackhawks Focus. A lot of people really like Oliver Moore. And I think there's a lot of reason too. Like I said in my video last night, and I stand by this statement today, that he's exceeded my expectations throughout this preseason and throughout camp. A lot of people want him on the opening night roster. Still not sure if they're going to give him a spot. I feel like coming into the season, they kind of had him almost not penciled into the AHL spot, but it was more than likely he would start in the AHL, and I think he's definitely making a really good case for himself. Still not sure it's going to happen, but I think if it does happen, he will handle himself very well. Also, a few people that mentioned Burakovsky and how he didn't quite stand out in this game, and I totally get that. I wouldn't give up on him or be so quick to be like, he shouldn't be on the first line. We got to move him down in the lineup. It's really early. It's going to take a little bit to develop chemistry because he missed, I think, a day of training camp practice, and this is his first game of the preseason. It's the first game with that top line together, so I wouldn't read into it too much. We'll kind of have to see a couple games of them together before we can really see how he fits on that line. I thought at the very least he seems like he's a pretty fast player. Like, we knew that kind of going in, but it definitely looked like today he does have some speed to his game. Didn't see a whole lot of his playmaking and stuff of that sorts, but again, not going to read too much into it. Got to have a little larger sample size before we make a call like that, at least in my opinion. So I think that sums it up pretty well for tonight. Really strong effort by the Blackhawks. They're back in action Tuesday. I'll see you then.